The silent treatment can cause your relationship to go into the graveyard prematurely if you do these three things. Hi, I'm Russell B. Rogers, relationship recovery coach, helping men to recover from divorce, heartbreak, or even help them to grow inside the relationship that they currently have with the woman that they love. There are many ways and many things that I can name that can destroy the health and the wealth of a relationship. And one of the major ways that it can be destroyed is through the silent treatment. Now, I can personally attest to this because I've even struggled with this very, very much. You see, the silent treatment was my natural response to conflict and was my go-to defense mechanism that I chose to display when it came to emotional vulnerability. So the very first way that your relationship can be destroyed through the silent treatment is that it can cause you to build barriers instead of bridges in your relationship between you and your partner. It can cause you to build barriers because silence creates distance, and distance creates relational tension. And the longer that this relational tension goes unaddressed, it can put emotional space or distance between you and your partner, thereby building a wall or barrier that will make it then harder to address other conflicts later down the line. A true healthy relationship cannot be built climbing over emotional walls, but by walking over emotional bridges built together, bringing you together so that whatever conflict is present can be addressed by the two mutual parties, because both are willing to give attention, time, and effort to the conflict at hand. So you want to make sure you're building bridges and not walls in your relationship by deactivating this first point that I mentioned with the silent treatment. Because once you begin to start building bridges in your relationship, it then creates space for you to build a solid emotional foundation, as well as it will help to grow and foster emotional maturity. Which brings me to my next point in which the silent treatment can destroy your relationship, is that it can stunt or halter or hinder your emotional growth. Being in a relationship exposes both your strengths and your weaknesses when it comes to emotional maturity. And if you're implementing the silent treatment, what this can do is stunt your emotional growth and emotional development, because it will cause you to lose both sympathy and empathy for your partner's emotional experiences. And it can also cause you to retreat rather than lean into the conflict to address it and attack it head on. And when this happens, what you'll come to find is you'll be less and less inclined to even talk about it or even think about it. And this can cause you to go to outside sources or vices that you use as a crutch to escape the conflict rather than attacking it head on, and deal with it in a way that promotes growth, which should be the primary goal of any healthy, thriving relationship. And the final way that this silent treatment can destroy your relationship is that it can kill your intimacy with your partner. Intimacy is built on emotional safety, and the silent treatment does a very good job at removing that aspect from your relationship. And so when you don't give time, tender love, and care to the conflict at hand, it can signal to your partner that you don't care about solving the actual problem. And you can't solve what you're not willing to resolve. And then what you will begin to notice is that your partner would then start coming to you less and less and less with their emotional experiences, because they now deem you as emotionally unstable and emotionally unsafe. So I want to leave you with 3 actionable steps that you can take today that can help you rid yourself of the silent treatment from your relationship, and to help promote a healthy dialogue between you and your partner. So the first thing I want to recommend is that if you need time to cool off after a heated argument, which can happen sometimes, this is pretty normal and standard for every relationship, you have to set boundaries and expectations before you walk away from the conflict. So for example, if you need time to cool off, you can say things like, honey, I just need about 10 or 20 minutes to cool down to get my head straight. And once I come back, we could talk about it then. What this does is it showcases that you're willing to resolve the issue. You just need time to cool off so that you don't lean to your own understanding, and that you need space and time to reflect on what happened. When you then identify the temporary amount of time that you need to take to step away, you'll want to use that set aside time intentionally and then begin to reflect on what happened. You'll also want to think about what you want to say, and most importantly, how you want to say it. And also introduce some possible solutions to increase the health and the wealth of your relationship. so that when you come back, now you're emotionally and mentally ready to deal with the issue at hand in a healthy way. So the second step that you can take and try is to identify the natural vices that you gravitate towards when you feel yourself getting heated, when you feel yourself getting frustrated, or when it comes to having a conflict with your partner. Because 9 times out of 10, what you'll find is when you identify those vices, those are the very vices that you want to be intentional about staying away from when conflict arises in your relationship. So you want to make every effort not to gravitate towards those actual vices, so that it doesn't cause you to build a wall between your relationship. So the last thing I want to leave you with is what I like to call the brain dump method. So what you're simply going to do when conflict arises and you feel like you want to begin to implement the silent treatment, set those expectations for the dialogue again, ask for that intentional time that you need to set aside to reflect and think. And then what I want you to do is get out a notepad and a pen. And then you're going to begin to just write. I want you to write the very first thing that comes to your mind when you think about the conflict, when you think about what she said, when you think about what you said, when you think about what you want to say, and write down what you think she's trying to say. And along with that, writing down how you feel about it. And at the end of the specified time, you put the notebook down and you step away from it. And you don't read it back. You put it aside, you take a step back, and you take a couple deep breaths. And then begin to affirm yourself and remind yourself, I'm not going to take this weight back into this conflict. And so what this does is it helps you to go back to the conflict, to address it and attack it head on. Now you're going back to the conflict emotionally and mentally clear, to then be able to address the conflict from an emotional and mental clean slate. So try these tips out. Let me know how they work down in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one.